A single retaliatory strike has pushed the U.S.-Iran conflict into one of its most dangerous moments yet. Iran has launched a missile and drone attack on Kuwait, marking a significant escalation in tensions. Here's what we know about this alarming development. The recent escalation in tensions between the United States and Iran has left many analysts and policymakers grappling with a complex situation. Following a series of provocative actions, including missile strikes and military posturing, the U.S. is now considering a significant retaliatory strike against Iranian targets. This response could have dire consequences, potentially drawing in regional players such as Saudi Arabia and Israel, both of whom have long-standing interests in countering Iranian influence. The historical backdrop of U.S.-Iran relations, marred by decades of animosity since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, adds layers of complexity to the current standoff. Past efforts at diplomacy, particularly the 2015 nuclear deal, have often faltered, leaving a vacuum filled by escalating tensions. Diplomatic efforts, however, could also be on the table, especially as international actors, including European allies and Russia, push for a ceasefire to avert disaster. Kuwait's involvement is particularly noteworthy, as the nation may position itself as a mediator to prevent conflict from spilling over onto its territory, given its strategic location. The U.S. Congress is also weighing in, with discussions surrounding the need for legislative approval for military operations, reflecting growing concerns over unchecked executive power in foreign affairs. The potential for conflict is further complicated by economic factors, particularly fluctuations in oil prices, which could have a ripple effect on global markets and impact consumer behavior worldwide. As both sides ramp up military readiness, analysts will be closely monitoring troop movements, potential retaliatory actions, and any signs of diplomatic overtures. In the coming days, the critical question remains whether the U.S. and Iran will find common ground to de-escalate tensions, or if we are witnessing the early stages of a broader conflict that could reshape the geopolitical landscape in the Middle East. The next few days will be crucial in determining the trajectory of U.S.-Iran relations and regional stability. The events leading to today's attack have been building for months, culminating in a significant escalation of hostilities. The U.S. and Iran have engaged in a series of tit-for-tat strikes, following the collapse of earlier diplomatic efforts aimed at reducing tensions. In recent weeks, the U.S. has conducted airstrikes against Iranian military assets in Iraq and Syria, claiming to target militia groups linked to Tehran. These strikes were intended to deter Iranian influence and protect U.S. personnel in the region. Conversely, Iranian proxies have launched assaults on U.S. interests, including embassies and military bases, marking a dangerous escalation. Despite ongoing negotiations, discussions aimed at de-escalation have failed to halt the cycle of violence. The Iranian leadership, emboldened by what they perceive as U.S. aggression, has signaled a willingness to escalate their military responses. This cycle of retaliatory attacks raises alarms reminiscent of past conflicts in the region. The involvement of Kuwait in this context marks a new and dangerous chapter in U.S.-Iran relations, as the nation has historically served as a mediator but now finds itself caught in the crossfire. The ramifications of this conflict extend beyond regional stability, potentially affecting global oil markets and international diplomatic relations. As both nations threaten further military action, the risk of a broader conflict looms large. Analysts warn that the current trajectory could ignite a wider confrontation, drawing in allies and adversaries alike. The international community is increasingly concerned about the implications of these developments. Moving forward, it is essential for diplomatic channels to remain open and for both sides to recognize the potential for catastrophic consequences. The coming weeks will be critical in determining whether a path toward de-escalation can be forged or if the cycle of violence will continue unabated. The recent missile and drone attack has escalated tensions in the Middle East, marking a critical juncture in regional geopolitics. This incident, reportedly carried out by Iranian-backed forces, has raised alarms among neighboring countries and international observers alike. The attack signifies a troubling escalation in hostilities, underscoring the fragile security landscape in an area already rife with conflict. Historically, the Middle East has been a flashpoint for geopolitical strife, often driven by territorial disputes, religious divides, and competition for resources. The significance of this latest escalation lies in its potential to reignite broader conflicts reminiscent of previous regional wars, such as the Iran-Iraq War or the Gulf War. The immediate aftermath saw oil prices surge by over 5%, reflecting market anxieties regarding supply disruptions. Economies heavily reliant on Middle Eastern oil are now facing increased uncertainty. Analysts warn that continued military actions could cripple oil supply chains and push prices even higher, which would have a cascading effect on global markets. The ripple effects of rising oil prices extend beyond the energy sector, impacting everything from transportation costs to consumer goods, thereby affecting everyday lives worldwide. Civilians in both Iran and Kuwait are caught in this dangerous crossfire, facing heightened risks as the specter of retaliatory strikes looms large. The potential for civilian casualties and displacement adds a humanitarian dimension to this conflict, which often gets overshadowed by military analyses. Meanwhile, the U.S. government is grappling with intense political pressure to respond decisively. Lawmakers from both parties are advocating for a robust military response, fearing that inaction could embolden aggressors and lead to further instability. The implications of this situation extend to global security dynamics, as an escalation could draw in major powers, potentially leading to a multinational conflict. The average person should recognize that the stakes are high. Rising oil prices will affect everything from fuel costs to consumer goods. Looking ahead, the international community must engage in diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining whether these diplomatic initiatives can prevent a scenario where military confrontation becomes inevitable, further entrenching divisions and complicating peace efforts in the region. On June 4, 2026, Iran executed a deadly missile and drone attack on Kuwait, directly responding to recent U.S. airstrikes in the region. The assault occurred at approximately 10:15 a.m. local time, targeting military installations near Kuwait City. Eyewitness accounts describe a relentless barrage of missiles and drones, resulting in significant damage and numerous casualties. Initial reports indicate at least 30 fatalities, with many more injured, prompting emergency services to respond rapidly to the scene. The Iranian government framed this attack as a necessary retaliation for what it perceives as persistent U.S. aggression in the Middle East, emphasizing a pattern of escalating military confrontations between the two nations that has been intensifying over the past year. Historically, Kuwait has maintained a neutral stance in the ongoing tensions between the U.S. and Iran, often positioning itself as a mediator. However, this incident marks a pivotal moment, as it represents a direct assault on a nation that has sought to avoid involvement in such conflicts. Analysts suggest that this attack could signal a significant shift in the geopolitical landscape of the Gulf region, raising alarms about the potential for a broader military escalation. The implications are profound, with regional allies and adversaries reassessing their strategies in response to this escalation. The attack not only heightens the risk of a wider conflict, but also raises critical questions about the future of diplomatic relations in the Middle East. Kuwait's unique position may now be compromised, forcing it to navigate a complex landscape of alliances and enmities. The United States, facing domestic and international pressures, must consider its next steps carefully, balancing the need to support allies while avoiding further escalation. Looking ahead, the international community faces a crucial moment. Diplomatic efforts will be essential to prevent further hostilities, but the path to peace appears fraught with challenges. As regional powers react to this attack, the potential for a broader conflict looms large. The coming days will be pivotal in determining whether diplomatic channels can be revived or if the cycle of violence will spiral out of control. The situation remains fluid, and all eyes will be on the responses from both Iran and the U.S. as tensions continue to unfold. As we face the possible escalation of conflict in the Middle East, what do you think will happen next? Will there be a ceasefire or more military action? Share your prediction in the comments, and subscribe for daily deep dives into critical global events.